All right, welcome back. Let's talk about some candy for the Hartford yard goats. And I know you also mentioned the New Bees and the Tell-In, but it's because you're from New Britain, obviously. But the yard goats have really been
it's baseball in town, right? You know, you're surviving. You're doing this great entertainment thing for the community, and I think to give kudos to both. I mean, they're 12 miles apart, and yet they're both surviving.
This was controversial, yet it's doing really well.
It was. It's doing so well that they could have paid for it themselves. They didn't have to ask the taxpayers.
Always a backhanded compliment. I mean, we did 942,000 pieces of candy because that is the attendance that the yard goats drew in their second season. So they didn't even fall off after the inaugural. I love being downtown when all that traffic starts coming into the stadium.
Yeah. Only complaint I get is that people complain about the area around it, that there's nothing developed yet. Right. And that is supposedly...
Let's get the grocery store.
Get that going. Get that going. All right, candy for the travelers. That was you.
I said that because they gave $5 million to crumbling foundations. This is a serious issue out in eastern Connecticut. I'm not so sure that what the state set up is going off as smoothly as it should be, and so this is great for an insurance company to step forward because legally the law doesn't allow for that to be covered by insurance. So they're really stepping out there. Other folks hopefully will follow.
We don't have a cold graphic, Kevin, but you were very hard on Bob Stefanowski for the way he handled the crumbling foundations epidemic this year.
Oh, he sounded like an idiot when he went out to view a foundation and wasn't very sympathetic to the homeowners. I thought, just stay away. The homeowners have had enough people who aren't very sympathetic to them. They don't need someone who's running for governor.
Goes back to the national consultants.
We always have. We're going to save the biggest award for last, and this was unanimous. All three of you chose that this next person should get a lump of coal. So 3 lumps of coal, that's a pretty heavy stocking. Congresswoman Elizabeth Esty. Kevin, I'll begin with you.
Well, she had a very bad situation in her office with a young woman, Anna Kane, being subject of serious abuse from the chief of staff, Tony Baker. And she didn't do anything for months. In fact, she gave him a very generous severance package when he left and a recommendation for a job with the Sandy Hook Promise in an anti-violence group started in Connecticut, but in their Ohio branch. And she failed on every level. And as the year ends, we still don't know. What did that chief of staff have on Elizabeth Esty that she did something as stupid as that?
Yeah, I mean, it was mind-blowing.
Listen, I think, first of all, I think that's unfair. What did the chief of staff have on her? She handled it poorly. And listen, this was hard for me. I think Elizabeth Esty was a really good congresswoman. I would have liked to see her retain her seat. We were making light of the coal versus candy, but that's hard. It was mishandled. In her defense, she did say later on down the road that it was mishandled. She decided not to run. She issued an apology not only just for the process, but to the survivor as well, and was pretty strong on those ends. But listen, it shouldn't take 3 months after you're notified, particularly in today's environment, and particularly by a sitting female congresswoman, to take care of that situation.
And Anna Kane was especially brave to come forward and tell her story.
She gets a candy cane.
I would just say that, you know, elected officials are entrusted with the public trust, and you really need to act accordingly. Elizabeth Esty, as early as this week, has been saying, you know, I got bad advice, I got bad advice. Inherently, you know as a human being how to treat people, and she failed.
So what's next for her? Can she ever come back from this?
Well, I think she's got $1 million in her campaign fund that through our election laws, federal election laws, she's allowed to keep and dole out as she tries to make her way back. So that's an attractive ornament for her to be dangling out there as she shops herself around.
I think it's up to her, right?
Yeah.
She has money to continue to play in politics. She could decide to run again. The Connecticut landscape is littered, we just talked about this, with second chances and third chances. So it depends how she approaches her next chapter, but absolutely she can come back.
For obvious reasons, I kind of have to stay out of the whole coal and candy thing, but I will throw this one, these last 2 out there, and one is a piece of coal for a person who canceled Face the State 3 hours in advance. I will not name this person, but that person... I was told I would get an apology. I still have not had an apology from this person who canceled so late in the game.
Oh no!
You know, and the reasons were suspect, and that person went on to lose. But we'll see. Maybe 2019 will bring a different year. And a big candy cane for all the Face the State viewers who made us the most watched political program, Sunday program, more viewers than the year before. So we thank you very much for your loyalty and your support. I want to end this program with a couple of predictions for 2019, maybe the municipal races or things we might see changing this year or some percolating for 2020. Who'd like to begin?
Definitely casinos. I mean, I think that that's going to be a huge issue coming up. We've been talking about that a little bit here today. Governor Lamont is going to have a big opportunity. He's going to have to bring everyone to the table and try to really hash that out. Any
inside info on your boss, whether she's going to run again for re-election? Or
she will be letting us know in the near future.
No. Kevin, predictions for this year?
I think that Ned Lamont is going to be a much more conciliatory governor than what we've had in the last 8 years. And I think that's going to bring him some early success. He's facing some very difficult problems with the state budget deficit. But I do think he comes into this with a willingness to be innovative and unlock himself from party ideologies.
And the Hartford mayor's race, where do you think that's going to go?
I think probably Luke Bronin, who's a very good fundraiser, will certainly be the front runner throughout and probably be reelected.
Yeah, so it's all about 2020 now, right? And the lessons that we learned in this last cycle will be applied to the next. I do think we saw how national politics played at a local level, right? We used to say everything's local. This was a different election in many ways. You can see the race for 2020, even in Connecticut, start now.
What about the Republicans in Connecticut? How do they rebuild this year? What do they have to focus on, Jody?
They really have to focus on their constituents and listening to them. Really, if you're going to be a good public servant, you've got to talk to the folks in your district. You've got to listen to what they want, and you've got to react accordingly. And hey, listen, Donald Trump is our president. Some of his policies have been very good. His actions speak louder, and unfortunately, he needs to start acting presidential. He's definitely going to play in these races coming up, and people need to start separating and saying it's not acceptable.
Kevin, you talked about resilient. We forgot about Susan Bysiewicz. That's resilient. She came back.
Oh, it's historic resilient. I think 9 statewide campaigns, and now 3 for governor, and now she's 1 for the U.S. Senate, 1 for Attorney General.
It wasn't 3.
Yeah,
Susan Lucci of politics. I think you might have written.
We had a governor's race, we had an attorney general's race, and we had a state senate.
She also helped the governor, in terms of the fact because she'd won statewide races, he'd not done that.
Absolutely. Listen, there's no doubt that, and people, people don't know that she was working the whole time she was out of office. She continued to work. You could find her at your local town committee event, for years.
Tanya Meck, Kevin Roney, Jody Latina, Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming on. We enjoyed this. We'll do it again next year with some new names. If you get Cole next year again, I don't know what to tell you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and Merry Christmas.